Welcome. In this video we are going to develop a GUI-based game using Python. I am assuming that you know some basics about Python. This game would be a simple board game. This is an interesting game called Do Not Find Fox. Game looks simple but not really. Game is developed by Alex Cheddar. Goal of the game is not to find fox vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. We are going to make a diagonal variation. Before we start coding, we should know about the blueprint and the logic of the game. This game consists of 4x4 grid, where each cell will be the button. Whenever you click on button, it will place random letter from fox. Since we are doing O diagonal variation, the diagonal is pre-filled with O. Okay, perfect. Next, when we click on the buttons, random letter would be placed. This letter is selected randomly from 5F, or 5X or 2O. If the word fox appear horizontally, vertically and diagonally, then you have to display game over message. We are going to use Visual Studio Code for this project. We are going to open the folder, and name it as Do Not Find Fox. Next we are going to create file findfox.py, where we will be writing our code. We require two libraries for this game. First is Tkinter, which is a Python graphical user interface library. With the help of that we're going to make the user interface for the game. Second, we have to import random function, which is used to shuffle the letters. You have to install the library before using it. Run the command pipe install Tkinter in terminal before importing it. Since I have already installed it, I am not going to install it again. Next, let's create a class called as findFox. Let's zoom the window a little bit. I think the code is more visible now. Next we define the constructor for the class. Constructor is special method used to initialize the attributes of the object. It is automatically called when a new instance of a class is created. Next we type the super function, which is used for inheritance. The reason we do this is because our class findFox is a subclass of Tkinter library. Next we define the title of the game as Do Not Find Fox. Next we fix the size of the GUI window using geometry function. Let it be 400 x 450 here. Next we initialize grid data, where it stores empty strings initially. It requires two for loops, as it is a 4x4 matrix. We will be defining it in single line itself. Next we declare cells as empty dictionary. Its use will be explained later. Next we will define two functions, so that our code looks neat. First is create display function, used for displaying the frame that contains other widgets. Next function is to display the board grid. Let's define our first function, that is create display function. We are going to define display frame, which is equal to tk.frame. Master equal to self is required to indicate that the frame belongs to parent class. This frame is used to place all other widget. Next we pack it. tk.x makes the frame expand horizontally. Next we will define the label for the game. The label would display the text ready, which indicates that you are ready to play. Label has two parameters, that is master and text. Last we pack display. Next we create function called create board grid. Here we create a frame called as grid frame. And then we are going to pack the frame as widget. We require 2 for loops here. This is used to place the buttons on each cell. Tkinter button is used to create buttons. We are going to place buttons on each grid cell. Foreground will be set to black. Width will be 3 characters. And height will be equal 2 lines. We will highlight the background to light blue color. On the command parameter, we are going to define a lambda function. This defines the action whenever the button is clicked. Whenever the button is clicked, place letter function will be called. We will define place letter function later. So button is created. Now we are going to place the button on each cells. Button.grid is used to place button on specific cell. Sticky equals NSEW makes the button expand to fill the entire cell in the grid. NSEW is nothing but north, south, east, west. Next we define the main function to run our code. Here we will make board as the instance of the class findFox. Board.main loop is used to start the Tkinter main event loop. We call the main function. Next we run this program. After running the program, we get to see a GUI window. When we click on button, we get exception. This happens because we have not defined place letter function. Next we will fill the diagonal with O. To do that we will create a fill diagonal function. We will take a for loop to place O in the diagonals. Single loop is sufficient because row number and the column number would be the same. Now we configure all diagonal cell to have O. We also need to disable those buttons or cells. We copy the name of this function and place it on the constructor. This function would be self.fillDiagonal. We obviously need a restart button to play the game continuously. So we are going to create one. Before that, let's save the code and run our file. You can see the diagonal is filled with O. In this restart button function, we are going to create a restart frame first. Then pack the frame. Then are going to place button on that. Pad Y parameter is used for padding. We define restart button as our restart button. Text will be restart here. I think red color button with white text would look good here. Then we pack this button. We run and see our program. Oops! We forgot to add the button to the constructor. We will add it now. Now we run and see it. Here you go. Restart button has been created. Now let's describe the place letter function. First we will check whether the game is over or not. If self.displayed@cget.status. Sorry, it's not status, it starts with. We check whether the labels start with game over or not. Next we check for empty cells. If the cell is empty, we place random letter whenever that button is clicked. Here we are checking whether the letter pool variable is initialized or not. If it is not initialized, we are going to initialize it. This letter pool would contain a list of 5F, 5X, and 5O. Here we are going to use random function. Random.shuffle is used to shuffle the characters present in the letter pool. Now we are going to pick a random letter from letter pool and place it on the grid. This letter would be popped or removed from the list. Next we will configure the button or cell to be disabled. Next we will check whether game is over or not. If the word FOX or Fox is found, then the game is over. We have to display the text game over, and then disable all the cells. Now we will define the logic for the game over function. We have to check for the word Fox here. We will define a sub-function within the game over function. This function is called check sequence function, and we will be going to check sequence of the cells. Sequence will be passed as parameter. We will return true if the sequence Fox is found. Slice function will be used to extract the information. If the sequence or word Fox is not found, then we will return false. Now we check all the rows in the grid. For row we need to access the grid data. If the word is found in row, then we will return the text, something like "Game over, you have found fox." Next we will check for the word fox in columns. Note that the logic for column is slightly different from row. Next we have to check for the word fox diagonally. We create a list called diagonals. Here in this list, we will append all the possible diagonal subsequents. First we collect the diagonal from bottom left to top right. First we collect lower left diagonals and then append it. Ctrl+C. And Ctrl+V. Next part is for collecting the diagonals in upper right part. Next we collect the diagonals from top left to bottom right. Copy-paste and do some slight changes. That's the overall logic for the diagonals. Next, for the diagonals present in the list, we are gonna check for the word fox. Again copy-paste. Now when all the cells are filled, then the player will win the game. When the word fox is not found, then we display the victory message. At last we return none. This ensures continuity. We write the logic for restarting the game. This logic would be defined under restart game function. We now define it. Whenever we click on Restart button, this function would be called. Here we set all the cells to be empty string, just like we did in the beginning of our code. Then we fill the diagonals with O. And also we set our display text to be ready. We got some issue here. Okay, we forgot to define disable grid function. Let's define that function now. In this function all the cells or buttons would be disabled. Now, we execute this, and check. Looks like no issues here. Next we will keep the track of the attempts. Self.attempts would keep the track of it. It is initialized to 0. We would create a function to track attempts. This attempts label would be placed below restart button. We will now start defining this function. We will use label to display the attempts. After creating a label, we will pack it. Next we have to define the logic for this updating the attempts. We will use updateAttempts function. We will define update label below the restart game function. We pass success message as the parameter. This success would be a string. In this function, we will either reset the attempts to 0, or we increment the self.attempts by 1. After updating the value, we will display the text. So everything looks good. We will save it. Let's run and check. You can see that attempts is 0 at the beginning of game. Count of attempts is incrementing. I guess it's perfect. Since everything is good, we are gonna convert this program to application. For this we will go to terminal. Now we will run the command pipe install PyInstaller. It's already installed in my system. I am installing it again to show the process. It will take some time, depending on your network speed. Now we will run this command and convert this code to application. Run this command on the terminal. It will take some time to convert into a gaming application. Now on right side you can see that 2 new folders has been created. Just keep waiting. And now it's done. Now we open the folder where our code is stored. In the dist folder, our application will be stored. When we double-click it, we can play the game. So that's it folks, hope you liked this video. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe.